Here we'll have a little look at how do we add colour to a drawing. Okay, now we're working on our playground project, which is a plan view. We'll have a look at that. The kind of tools we're going to be using today are some standard colouring pencils, some normal pencils, and this is a 2H and that's a 2B, so it's a bit of a darker pencil. And even you'd be amazed what you can do with a normal black biro. So we'll look at two scenarios here. Okay, so take this with pencil here. Let's say we have a little oval shape here, because we're working off ellipses, so you might have a shape like that. You might also have a shape, let's say it was a slide that went down something like this. Okay, so let's see, how can we add a little bit of colour to these just to make them a bit more interesting. Now, what you might be tempted to do initially is take your colouring pencil and just kind of shade them as a flat colour. Alright, so if we're doing that, we're kind of used to this one. We'll have a quick flick of this first. Now, that's there, it's coloured, it's a little bit boring, it's a little bit uneven. Now, if you notice when I was doing this, I was generally using a side-to-side motion in the same direction, and I use a little bit of a swirly motion at the end. And this is kind of one thing to think about. When we're colouring, okay, we can go side to side like that, okay, and I can even vary the tone by the pressure, or I can go circular like this. And depending on what you're doing, one or the other might be appropriate. So just bear in mind they both exist. So when we look at this, let's see, can we add a bit of shading as if it was, maybe a mound coming up or something. So what we can begin to do is add in the dark areas. Okay, so let's just think that this is going to be a bit darker around here. And again, using that little circular motion to get the corner of it. Maybe bright spot might be about here. And kind of come around the edge there. So we're getting a little bit better, but this is not brilliant looking. It's really just sort of two-tone, a bit messy. But it gives us an idea where to go. So what we'll do next is we're going to start to try and build this up. And I want to try and go darker at the edges. Okay. And notice the way I'm blending these is actually I'm going to go take the mid-tone here and go darker first. Bring it right down towards the edge. Okay. And the reason behind that is we tend to see things get dark quite fast as the angle moves away from the sun. We'll look more at that in another lesson, but it goes from bright to slightly less bright, slightly less bright, and then falls off. So we'll just kind of bring this in, and again, I'm not going to go quite evenly the whole way around it. So now at this stage I want to try and smoothen out the various kind of gradients. I want to see, can we follow the curve a bit in this guy? So we'll just go on there and see, can we get that sort of sorted out. Alright, now I deliberately made this end a bit darker just to see what we can do with it. So this is like a mound where it's kind of coming up a little bit in the center. So what we can do is you can experiment around a bit. I would say just generally don't go too mad and leave a bright area so we can see a nice variation in it. So already there we've improved the depth of this. You could go around further and keep tidying up the darkness and smoothing it out a bit more. But I want to show you another little technique. Okay, what we can do is we can darken the edges. So you could take 2B pencil or even just a 2H and press a bit harder, and we can bring up the edges and make the edges pop a little bit more. Just by going along there. Now this depends on your freehand being pretty good, but it can be a nice way to make it pop. Alright, you can actually do that with a marker or a pencil, a pen. See, I'm going to use this pen here to actually bring out this one here. It's a handy way to make the drawing really jump out. You see, if I go back over this in a pen at this side, you'll see it really begin to pop. All right, so that can be nice. And if you're finding that there's too much of a step here, you can actually go in and add a little bit of shadow to the edge of the drawing if you really wanted to. Okay, just to blend that a small bit. So again, if you look at something like a slide over here, let's come over here, we'll try an orange, bit of variety. Let's say I wanted to try and get the idea that this was a curve going down. Okay, so it's the high section, go down to the middle and back up again. Well, again, what we'll kind of do is go along the slide. See, can we bring this in a bit? So we'll get that mid-tone along the way. Okay, that doesn't look great so far, but remember, we are just going to put a very, very light little bit of shading here. Very, very... Okay, probably lighter than that would be ideal. There we are. So we have really just two colors here. And now we're going to try and build up the darker edge. So there we can kind of see we're bringing a nice little bit of depth as we go around this. You could go further and think that the sun is coming in this way and pick up the curves differently. But for the moment, I'd be happy to see that kind of variation that gives an idea of a change in the thing. It's a little bit more interesting than just a flat object in straight color.